Hey gang, this is John Newton from Snap-on John 100, and we're out in a local park, and we're going to be going over making char cloth and starting a fire with flint and steel. Stay with us. I found a piece of a grapevine, so what I do is I check it, and it's been hanging, so it snaps pretty good. So this will be pretty good material to help with starting my fire. So instead of just deadheading to my area, I'm keeping my eyes open for something that will help me get the fire started, so that when I'm ready to go, I'll have something. So I've been collecting some stuff that I've been finding that's just hanging and that's dead, and when I find some other material that we can use for the bird's nest, I'll get back to you. Here's another good one. This is a grapevine, some bark off the grapevine. I like to use this for the support of my bird's nest. So it's not something that is going to burst into flames easily, but will burn real well once there's a flame established. So I put this on the very bottom and use it kind of as a handle for my bird's nest. Look at this, all this huge grapevine up here, monstrous. This must be, you know, at least 100-year-old grapevine. You never see it this big hardly. And what I wanted to mention about the grapevine, dried grapevine, the reason why it's something I use for the bottom, because it works really well for once you've got a flame established, it burns really well, but when it's not processed down. And this is one of the things that when you're looking for something to process down, when you grind it up, it tends to just go into powder because it's not stringy. It doesn't have like the long fibers in it, like poplar, the underbark of poplar, or the underbark of basswood, for instance. And I brought some of that, both of those with me for my part of my bird's nest to show you what that was like. But this is something that I found doesn't process down into fibers, so it's not going to be something good that will that you've got when you've got a big ember going that will burst into flame, like the other things are, because you want the surface area. So that's why this is better for just burning rather than using it to as part of your bird's nest to burst into flame. It's more of a support material. Here is this branch I found on the ground is basswood, and you can see this is where you start for your bird's nest if you're going to use inner bark, and every time you break it, you can tear the fibers back. And here's actually a bunch right there. And then you can use the exposed wood after you get done taking the bark off. You can keep the wood because that's dry and burns real well. So you can see it right there is the wood. And that's just all you have to do. And that's the material, another material for a bird's nest if you're having trouble finding other things out in the fields. Here's another thing that we're going to be looking into is punk wood. And what you're looking for is this kind of wood that's sort of spongy but not completely rotten. So you have to be careful where you get it. This is pretty good. Actually, this is not quite far gone enough. And sometimes it's better to find it where it's a standing tree, because you're not going to run in. This is really wet from the rains and stuff. But since we're going to be putting it in a tin and drying it out, it still can have moisture in it because we'll drive that away. But punk wood is something that is like a substitute for charred cloth, because not necessarily going to have the cotton But this kind of stuff you're going to find in every forest where there's a rotted tree. So it's a great to know how to make charred punk wood. This is pine cones. Squirrels have been eating these pine cones up here. This would be a good place to set a snare or a trap for one, because this is a log that they're naturally coming to. If you look down the log, there's several all the way down. You can see places where there's a pine cone where the squirrel has eaten it. Here's one, and there's one down there. So this is a spot where they like to come. It's like their dinner table. I've dug a small hole here because two reasons. I want to do a leave no trace, and the other for fire control, because this is an area where there's a lot of pine, so the ground could be flammable just from the needles and stuff on the ground. What we're going to do now is we're going to get some bigger stuff to have a base, because you never want to start a fire on the bare earth because it sucks the heat out of it. So we're going to go over here, since I picked a pine forest because pine is one of the easiest things to get to burn, and it's easy to find dead branches. So if you'll go with me, we'll find some extra sticks. We're looking for bigger stuff to put at the base of the fire. So I've lined the bottom of this hole with wood, so now this is going to be the base of the fire. So now what I need to do is I need to just get some small stuff and get my bird's nest ready. Okay, so now I've got the different piles of small stuff here. This is a little bigger, this is bigger, and then this is the regular wood for the sustainable fire. And I've got material for a bird's nest. This is the dried dried grapevine that I'm going to use as the support material for the back of my bird's nest, and it'll actually act as a handle. So I'm just kind of processing it a little bit, but this isn't as fibrous as the stuff you're looking for. That's fibrous is the stuff that when you crush it up, it ends up looking more like tobacco or something that stays together like this, rather than just kind of all crumbling up and falling away. And so this is the base part of my bird's nest. This is what you're going to, the end product of this is the inner bark of basswood, or yellow poplar. Tulip poplar is the same name for it. And you get this underneath the outer bark. So this is what you end up with. It takes quite a bit of work, but it's something that you can start a fire. This is something you could do even if it's been really rainy and wet, because you're getting this from underneath the bark. So that's the bird's nest. I just want to show you what starts from. Here's actual bark stripped away. So I've got this so you can see it close up. That's what that looks like. So you peel that off, and as you can see, it's real fibrous. Feel the fibers. You just work it down, and you make sure you flake off the outer bark. So once that's done, you end up with what looks like this, and then there's still bark here. You keep processing it and taking that away and throwing it away, and then you end up with the stringy fibrous ends. And that's what you want to do for your bird's nest. then this is the next stage before it gets like this. It's still got lots of, you keep pulling it apart like that and rubbing it in your hands, and the rubbing it gets the chunks of bark off, and that goes away, and you're left with what looks like this. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the process kind of from start to finish. I'll put that away. I'm not going to be using this. Okay, so we're going to start a fire with a flint and steel. This is my flint and steel kit. I keep tape on it to make sure that no air gets inside, because charred cloth really wicks up moisture. Okay. This is my flint and steel kit. I got some other things of charred cloth that I'm going to be getting out for this. Right, I have 2 tins here. These are tins that I use to make charred cloth in, and they're just a tin with a press-on lid. And what I do is I take a small drill that's I think that's 1/64 of an inch, drill a hole through both sides, and then when I'm ready to put them together to make the charred cloth, I just turn it and line up the 2 holes, and then that lets the gases escape, because you want to do this without oxygen. You want to burn it without oxygen, but you need to have an opening so the gases can escape, otherwise the lid will pop off and everything will be ruined. So I'm going to show you, this is an example of charred punk wood, and we can do a zoom in on that, and so you can see the charred punk wood, what it looks like. Really light, that takes a spark really well. This is also great in a fire piston. Okay, this is charred cloth, cotton cloth. We're going to use one of these tins to make some more, because I got some extra denim material, but I just wanted to show you. This is denim, and this is cotton string from a cotton mop, and here's a piece of terry cloth, which would be like a towel right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to I'm going to use the terry cloth one. It just has to be 100% cotton, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this. Here's a piece of flint, here's my steel, and what you're looking for is a sharp edge. There's lots of sharp edges on this piece, that's why I'm going to use it. And when you do this, you strike it, and this edge actually is so hard it shaves off steel, and when it shaves it off, it bursts into flames, because it's such a thin piece of steel and there's oxygen in the air, it oxidizes, which makes it burn. So when you do that, the sparks are going to be shooting up on the surface. So the way I like to do it is I put the charred cloth on the top, because that's where the sparks are going to go. If you have a big enough piece or small enough piece of flint, you can wrap it around so it's on the bottom and top, just in case one happens to land down there. But almost all of them will be going on the top. So I'm just going to be putting this on the top. And so I got to get that ready. I want to finish creating my bird's nest. And this is my handle right here. So I'm going to be putting this right in there. And this is where I'm going to put my ember. Okay, and I'll just be kind of holding it with this other stuff. Okay, so that's ready to go. So you just hold it in your hand, and there's 2 methods. One is striking the flint with the steel, the other one is striking the steel with the flint, and if you do that, then the sparks are going to be going down. So you use that method if you're going to light it inside the tin. I like to hold it up here so I can really see what's going on. 1 strike, that's all it took. We'll put that right in there. can see that didn't take much effort. Now we'll put these sticks on there. And we'll just let that burn. Put your steel and flint and steel away so they don't get lost. And you see that smoke? That's still the moisture being driven out of that underbark. So it still has the a lot of moisture in it, even though it seemed really dry. So now we're going to make some charred cloth. Earlier I cut up some denim, and there was even this frazzled out piece of stuff will work well. Just put that in there. I also cleared more area out because I want to try to make sure that I don't catch the forest floor on fire. Alright, so now you don't want to pack it in there too tight, but you want to take up as much of the space as possible. And then you want to line up the holes, or this, my method anyway. You got to line these holes up. They're lined up, and then I just put this in the coals with the hole sticking out so I can watch it. Because when it stops smoking, that's when I know it's done. And we'll just, when that starts smoking, we'll put the camera back on, and then when it's done, I'll cut it on again, and you can see it, the final product. Now you see the smoke is pouring out of this hole right there, and it will probably even actually get caught on fire because those fumes are flammable. And after a while, you'll see like a little flame shooting out, like a little flamethrower. Once that stops, it's done. Okay, the hole is right there, and you can see it's not smoking anymore. So I'm going to carefully take it out. And now the most important thing is you do not open it. You wait till you can touch it with your hand. Because if you open it, it will you'll introduce oxygen and will all burst into flames, and the whole batch will be ruined. That's why I like this container. I've had Altoid tins pop open before, and so I couldn't reliably keep them closed, so I went to this type of tin. Now this is cool enough now I can touch it, and so let's see what we got. You notice how it shrunk down? And what we'll do is we'll just test it, test a piece. I'll get my striker out. I'm going to use a smaller piece of flint. And just take a small piece. I want to make sure you, for safety's sake, keep those covered in case a spark would happen to fly in there. Okay, found a good edge, and I put it on top like this, and then strike it. Oh, there I got it. If you zoom in on this, you can see that it's glowing red to show that it lit. Okay, so we were successful with that, and I got a couple of pieces of punk wood, and this is what you would char in the tin, and you'd end up with what I showed you before, the charred punk wood. That also takes a spark rather well. Not to waste our fire coals, so I'm just going to char this punk wood and let you see how that turns out. Got to line up the holes, and I'll just put it right in the coals. Now you can see it's starting to smoke. It's removed now, and I've put it in an area where it's pretty much bare earth and kind of like mud here, and you can hear it sizzling when I press down on it. So definitely, so I want to reiterate, do not open this until you can touch it with your bare hands, because it's a very sad thing to see your charred cloth all of a sudden start to glow and burst into flames and ruin the entire batch. That's cool enough. So that's charred punk wood. It works fantastic in a fire piston. Just flake off a little piece, put it in there. And for something like this, if you fill up this with charred punk wood, that's when you can take the steel and take the piece of flint and actually strike the steel and direct the sparks into this, so you've got a large catching area. And then once you've got a glowing ember, take out the little piece of punk wood and or even blow this, touching the bird's nest, and blow this and blow it into flame, and then when you're done, cover it up, and you can just keep adding to this, and just by adding to it all the time, it'll start on fire, and then you put it out, and then so it starts continuously charring. So there is charred punk wood. Well, gang, I hope you enjoyed that video as much as we did, and I hope you learned something from it. If you have any questions about anything that you saw, don't hesitate to shoot me a message. And once again, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe, comment, and like the video. And until we meet again, God bless.